y'all, and welcome to the Healthy by Heather Brown podcast, where I encourage you in healthy mind, body, and spirit through my Sunday reset. Let's get into it. Here at the Healthy by Heather Brown show, we're on a mission to help women take back their health, mind, body, and spirit God's way. No woo-woo, new age fluff, or mainstream nonsense. In a world pushing quick fixes and burnout, we're choosing real wellness, intentional living, and faith-filled confidence. This show is for you, sister, and it's made possible by this incredible community. If you believe in this mission, here's how you can help. 1, pause and leave a 5-star review. It's free and makes a huge impact. Share with a bestie who needs this message. 3, support the mission financially. Every little bit helps. Links for PayPal and Venmo are in the show notes. Let's rise up and change the culture, showing the world what healthy, empowered, faith-filled women really look like. Is your thyroid quietly ruining your life while your doctor swears you're fine? Meanwhile, you're exhausted, puffy, moody, your hair's falling out, and you're wondering if your metabolism died in 2012. Enter Jill Grunwald, certified holistic nutrition coach, autoimmune warrior, and the woman who reversed her own Hashimoto's and regrew her hair after going half bald, y'all. Yep, you heard that right. Today, we're exposing the thyroid lies women have been fed for decades, why Synthroid might be just the beginning of the problem, and if your birth control, soy latte, and that vanilla candle are sneakily assassinating your hormones one sniff at a time. Oh, and did you know that your thyroid lives in your throat chakra? I'm not sure what we think about that, but we're going to discuss it in this episode. We're talking about how silencing yourself literally affects your health, whether yoga is healing or heresy, and how to reclaim your energy without selling your soul to Big Pharma. This is the episode every woman needs to hear, but especially the ones who have been told they're quote unquote just hormonal. Let's go. Okay, Jill, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. What is the thyroid and why is it bossing around every woman's body like it pays rent?
Yep.
That's it.
That is a great way of putting it. So it is a butterfly-shaped gland in the neck, and it's nicknamed the boss of our metabolism. It's a small gland, but it does so much for us. Every cell in the body has receptors for thyroid hormone, which is why the symptoms of hypothyroidism, which is underactive thyroid, runs the gamut from hair loss to weight loss resistance to dry skin to constipation to fatigue. I mean, it's, and the unfortunate thing is that a lot of people, chase those symptoms for years before they even get a hypothyroid diagnosis. So it is a big deal. And I feel like not enough providers are testing for it.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting too, because my sister has actually gotten a couple of tests to see if she's had some autoimmunity stuff going on. And she was like, well, all the tests came back normal, but I'm still having these symptoms. And so I feel like that's a fairly common thing to hear as well. Do you mind telling people what tests do you ask for that you feel like might be helpful to find out and get to the bottom of if that's a problem for you or not?
Yes, this is a rampant problem. Rampant issue that I have been beating my chest about for, since really 2008 when I started my Hashimoto's and hypothyroid practice, which is it's twofold. Number one, most providers, like the vast majority of providers, are not running a full thyroid panel. And I'll just go ahead and tell you what that is real quick. It's TSH, free T3, free T4, reverse T3, thyroid peroxidase antibody, and thyroglobulin antibody. That is a full functional thyroid panel. Now, there are a lot of providers that only test TSH, which makes me absolutely crazy because TSH is actually a pituitary hormone. It's not even a thyroid hormone. And TSH can be normal in the face of raging hypothyroidism. So I would confidently say millions of people are running around with hypothyroidism and don't know it because they're not getting properly tested. And they're like, well, my doctor said my TSH was fine. So, it must be something else.
Wow.
This is a huge problem. The second piece is that the vast majority of clinics, doctors, labs are using what's called outdated reference ranges. So, when you get a lab value and then you get the comparables in the parentheses, right? The reference range. Well, if those reference ranges swing too wide, first of all, they're based on a sick population. They're not even based on a healthy population.
Exactly.
If they swing too wide, it's very easy to get underdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all. But when you use the functional ranges, which are tighter, then you're more apt to find an imbalance with the thyroid. So there's two huge issues. And okay, actually, I would say there's a third piece of this, which I already mentioned, the thyroid peroxidase and the thyroglobulin antibody. So a lot of doctors, including endocrinologists, are only testing the thyroid hormones, which, I mean, we need to be doing that, right? We need to be testing the hormones. But they're not testing for whether or not it's autoimmune. And upwards of 90% of cases of low thyroid function, hypothyroidism, is Hashimoto's or autoimmune hypothyroidism, but we've got all these providers that aren't even testing for it.
Wow. So when people are listening to this and they're like, whoa, I think that I have it, she just listed all these things, can they go into their doctor and say, hey, I want you to test me for these things that you just said? Or what is the best way to go about that?
So as much as I hate to say it, a lot of providers will tell you, we only test TSH. That's the only thing you need. We don't need to test anything else. They also will say, well, we're not going to test the antibodies to see if this is Hashimoto's, because if it is, we wouldn't do anything differently. We would still prescribe the thyroid hormone replacement, even if this is autoimmune.
Yikes.
I know.
Yikes.
I know. It's a huge problem.
So what you're saying is they need to talk to you or someone like you, truly.
Well, I will tell you. So I have this like 1-page like PDF that's those labs that I just gave you. And it includes the functional reference ranges, which I didn't make up. I'm not a licensed medical provider. I didn't make those up. I got them from, very trusted sources in the functional medicine community. I've had clients and other people, because it's just a click away, print that out and take it to their provider and say, I would really like to, get this full panel. And some providers have said, who gave this to you? You don't need all of this. We only test TSH. That tells us everything we need to know. I mean, this is a rampant problem.
Wow.
Now, I don't want to speak disparagingly of all medical providers. There are plenty of medical providers who will say, yeah, let's do this full panel. I think that's a good idea. So I don't want to cast them all into this category of being, incompetent or whatever word you want to use. But I always tell people, you are the boss. You are the boss of your healthcare. And if there's a provider who you feel like is not testing you adequately or who's pushing back when you want some additional tests, go find another provider.
Amen. I could not agree with that more. And we talk about that so much. It doesn't matter what area of the body we're talking about. It always seems to lead back to this road. And y'all, I'm even like a family member recently was told, you just need to get on a statin. And if you look back on this in 30 years, you're going to wish you would have gotten on one. And the person was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And I would like to get a second opinion, blah, blah, blah. And so we were talking about how that's just become such a common thing where you really have to start to think outside the box. You have to remember you are the boss of your healthcare and you have to be making educated and informed decisions, getting those secondary opinions, and even, trying to find somebody that is maybe in Western medicine, but also can help you with the more specific things that are more holistic approach as well.
Yes. And I can order those labs. So I have an account through what's called Rupa Health. So I can order those labs. But, to your point about a provider being kind of straddling that line between conventional medicine and more holistic or functional medicine, is that oftentimes these labs can get covered by insurance, right?
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. Insurance is a huge part of it. I'm like, I need to do a whole nother episode just on insurance, actually. But I am curious, why does it seem like all of a sudden every other woman is suddenly having hypothyroid issues? Is this a real epidemic or is it a trendy diagnosis? It sounds to me like what you're saying is it's underdiagnosed, but why is it that I didn't hear about this as much 10 years ago? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's both. There's as much as I hate to say it, there's kind of this explosion of hypothyroidism vis-a-vis Hashimoto's. right? We know much more about Hashimoto's now, which, again, upwards of 90% of people who have low thyroid function do have Hashimoto's. So the other issue is, we're seeing an explosion of autoimmunity, but we are doing better testing, right? There has been a big push in, the holistic functional medicine space to educate about proper testing for thyroid. So we have, these like popular functional medicine doctors who have an online presence, they're on social, and, they've done what I would say is a pretty good job of educating people about, hey, you cannot just rely on TSH. Most people who have hypothyroidism have Hashimoto's. You need to be testing for the antibodies. So we are seeing a huge explosion in autoimmune conditions, which is really sad. And we've been seeing this for quite some time. And I would say the last 2 to 3 years, it has just absolutely skyrocketed. And, just because somebody has an autoimmune condition doesn't necessarily mean they have Hashimoto's. It could show up in another way. But up until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, don't quote me on this, or, I can't say this is 100% true, but for quite some time, Hashimoto's was the most common autoimmune condition. And now it's like one of the top 3. We're seeing an explosion in things like MS and lupus and, wow. So it's all part of that spectrum of autoimmunity, right?
Yes. So will you explain to people what exactly, and maybe you did this already and I blanked out, but what exactly is Hashimoto's? And if someone has Hashimoto specifically, are there certain symptoms that they might be seeing in their everyday life that would make them realize like, oh, she's mentioning this, maybe I need to go get tested, that's different than what you said earlier?
So the symptoms of Hashimoto's are the symptoms of low thyroid function, right? Okay. So with, that 90+% of people, there can be some other symptoms that go along with that, such as joint pain, right? We see a lot of joint pain in people who have autoimmunity. But what Hashimoto's is I don't like using the word attack. That's the most common word that's used, but I think I don't feel like it's really an appropriate word. But what you'll hear a lot of people say is those thyroid peroxidase and thyroglobulin antibodies are attacking thyroid tissue. So the way that I like to frame it is it's more of a misguided immune system, but our immune system is very smart. So if it's making those antibodies, it's actually doing what it should be doing, right? It's trying to protect us. I don't like this idea of, oh, my body's attacking itself. Oh my gosh, that just sounds so dramatic and kind of scary. But the fact is, if you have elevated thyroid peroxidase and thyroglobulin antibodies, then you have autoimmune antibodies to the thyroid gland. The symptoms are going to show up, pretty much the same, really. What I was saying before, like constipation, hair loss, weight loss resistance, depression, fatigue. Those are kind of some of the hallmark symptoms.
Yes. And I do want to say, because Jill is also a believer, long story short, we actually ended up meeting in Franklin, Tennessee for Dr. Josh Axe. He had like a business, golly, help me describe it better, Jill.
Health Business Mastery. Is that what it's called?
Yes, I think that's right. So we met there. And so a lot of the people that were there, I would say predominantly were believers. And so one of the things that I really appreciate about Jill's perspective on health is that she also believes that God designed your body to heal. And so when you give it the tools that it needs, like you're saying, your immune system, like it really is trying to protect you. It's just that it's not being given the tools that it needs, maybe is the best way to put it. But I just want to keep emphasizing that God did design your body to heal. And if you don't know where to start, people like Jill or someone who is in that functional space is so good at helping educate you on that. And I just love the way that you paint that so beautifully, Jill.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Now, this is something that I've heard recently. It's that I heard birth control can mess with your thyroid. Would you say that's true or false? And if it's true, why is no one talking about that?
It absolutely can. And this is something that I have been, pretty outspoken about. Actually, you're inspiring me right now to actually write a blog post about this. So, there's different types of birth control pill, right? And there's different levels of hormones within those different types of BCP. So the issue, or one of the issues, is all of that excess estrogen, right? Now, the liver has to clear whatever estrogens are not being used, right? So if I could back up for just a second, and I'm going to very pointedly answer this question. The thyroid predominantly makes T3 and T4. T3 is the big daddy thyroid hormone. It's nicknamed, it's nicknamed the big daddy. It's the active form. That's the form of thyroid hormone that gets into our cells and tells our body how to benefit from what the thyroid should be doing for us. T4 is the inactive form of thyroid hormone. The human body is meant to convert T4 into T3. We make roughly 93% T4 and only 7% T3, even though T3 is the active form. Well, a lot of that conversion takes place in the liver. So another mechanism by which the birth control pill can actually, diminish the level of circulating thyroid hormone is if that liver is working too hard to like metabolize this extra estrogen, it's going to have reduced capacity to convert that T4 into the active form of thyroid hormone, which is T3. So, that's probably one of the biggest mechanisms, but also the birth control pill has been shown repeatedly to deplete really key nutrients that the thyroid needs to run on.
Yikes. Oh my gosh.
So, and it's not just the thyroid. We don't want to be nutrient depleted anyway. Right.
For all your body, every part of your body.
Whole body. But yeah, the birth control pill really it depletes nutrients, and it can make a woman what's called estrogen dominant, right? Where the true definition of estrogen dominance is a little bit misunderstood. The true definition is when your estrogen is dominating your progesterone, when you've got too much estrogen in comparison to your progesterone, that ratio's off.
Okay.
But the other thing it can do is it raises what's called TGB, which is thyroglobulin binder. I think that's what that acronym stands for, which means that it's binding thyroid hormones and making them unavailable for us to use. So you could have perfect labs.
Oh, my word.
But if you have high TGB, your body's going to be binding some of them and making them unavailable for use.
Wow. That is wild. And it just makes me so frustrated when I wish that I could go back and talk to, 16 and 17-year-old Heather, because again, like we were talking about earlier, I remember going to my doctor and being like, I'm struggling with acne, and I also am having terrible cramps. And, what do they recommend? Even though I'm not sexually active, you should just get on the birth control pill. And it's like, what? You know what I mean? Yep. And so I was on it for years without even being sexually active, which is crazy to me in hindsight, looking at it. Thank God my mom actually sat me down and was like, listen, you can do what you want. It is your body. However, I would like to advise you that they're even saying that it can lead to it can be a carcinogen and all these things about the estrogen and do you need to be on that long term? And what does this look like? And at the time, I just was like, whatever, mom. The doctor said it was fine, so it's fine. You're 17. You think you know everything. And it really was such an eye-opener as I started to learn more about the body and how God designed us. And again, the body being designed to heal itself. And there were other things that I could have done to help with the acne naturally, or the cramps or what have you. But I just want to say that if you're listening to this episode and you have not listened to my episode with Nicole Jardim, go back and listen to that, because we go and we talk all about birth control and what to do. Okay, moms, get this. On my episode with Dr. Heather Finley, she told me our minerals get depleted by 7 years per child during birth. No wonder my body was waving the white flag. One simple thing she suggested: magnesium on my feet before bed. Enter Graisley's Magnesium Tallow Balm. It's made with grass-fed beef tallow and real Dead Sea magnesium flakes. Nothing synthetic, no fillers, no weird stuff. Just the good, natural ingredients your body actually recognizes. I rub it on my feet nightly and notice better sleep, less restlessness, and calmer evenings. Plus, it nourishes your skin while your body soaks up the magnesium. Clean, simple, effective. Safe enough for kids, strong enough for us tired mamas. Check it out at graisley.co and use code Heather. That's GRAZLY.co.
Yeah. I know who she is. She's wonderful.
She's phenomenal. She's so smart. Okay, so thank you for answering that question for us. So why are conventional doctors, would you say, just giving us, I looked this up and I'm not sure I understand exactly what it means, Synthroid, and sending us on our way, and what's being missed? Because I feel like the women that are listening to this episode who do have these issues are going to be like, yeah, that's what happened to me.
Synthroid is one of the most prescribed pharmaceuticals. And I have such an issue with it because going back to that conversion conversation. So let me back up. Synthroid, which is also called levothyroxine or Levoxyl, all the same thing, is synthetic T4. It's not even bioavailable. It's synthetic T4. Oh. Millions of people are on it. But most people don't benefit from it. I mean, I know people who've been on it for literally decades. And they're like, yeah, I'm still hypothyroid. I'm at my max dose. You know, my doctor just kept increasing my dose over the years. And now I'm on my max dose. I can't take any more, but I'm still hypothyroid.
Oh my gosh. Hang on, Jill, pause just a minute. Talk to us like we're first graders. If they don't know what bioavailable means and it's synthetic, can you explain that, please?
So synthetic is, you know, laboratory made or you know, laboratory derived, right? And the naturally desiccated thyroid hormones are also, you know, made in a lab. However, they are porcine derived. There might be some synthetics in there, but porcine meaning pig. So the natural, more naturally desiccated thyroid hormone replacement are things like Nature-Throid, Armor, NP-Thyroid, West-Throid. So those also contain some T3, which is the active form of thyroid hormone. But the problem is a lot of doctors won't prescribe them. They say you only need Synthroid. Synthroid, you know, we're going to write you a prescription for Synthroid. We're not going to test the antibodies to see if this is autoimmune. We're just going to try to replace what's missing. You know, I call it chase and replace. Like they're chasing these hormones and then just trying to replace what's missing or what's, you know, depleted or low. But the problem with Synthroid is, you know, again, it's synthetic T4. And a lot of people don't convert T4 to T3, either because of maybe a little bit of liver congestion, you know, that phase 1, phase 2 liver pathway needs some optimization and some support. But also we make that conversion in the gut too. So people who have like gut infections, even if it's a mild like H. pylori or, you know, SIBO. So, you know, when we think about gut, this is such a huge conversation when it comes to thyroid and autoimmunity because 70 to 80% of the immune system is in the gut.
Woo! Dang.
So going back to your question about Synthroid, most people don't benefit from it, or if they do, they go through what's called it's called the Synthroid honeymoon period, where they feel better maybe the first few weeks, but then they fall off a cliff, and sometimes their symptoms are actually worse. So this is also a huge problem. If someone's going to be on thyroid hormone replacement, I feel like they need to be working with a provider who knows that the naturally desiccated, you know, thyroid hormone replacement with that T3 in it is better for the vast majority of people, but you will be hard pressed to find a doctor who will prescribe it.
So my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that when something is like what you're talking about with the pork derived, the porcine, and it's bioavailable, that means that because it is formulated more similarly to how humans can intake and uptake and utilize something that closely matches with what our bodies do, that's why we can utilize it more than something made in a lab and synthetically. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. You did a better job of explaining it than I did. I should know that extra step, but yes, you're exactly right.
Okay, cool. So this is changing the subject a little bit, but can we talk a little bit about how common postpartum thyroid dysfunction is and why your OB probably didn't mention it once? Because I know mine did not. And I was like, whoa, this is the majority of the people that are listening to this is young to, you know, middle kid ages. And so for them, this is huge for them to know.
Yes. So there is some autoimmunity going into that pregnancy. And sometimes it's diagnosed and sometimes it's not, right? We have a lot of people running around with autoimmune conditions, which is considered subclinical. You know, maybe they don't have, enough symptomatology yet to, go to their doctor and say, hey, I'm having these issues and, actually be diagnosed. But, there's plenty of women who have been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition and they still have, a healthy pregnancy, healthy delivery, but what happens is the immune system actually down regulates during pregnancy. And the reason that it does that is to protect the fetus, right? To keep the mom from the mother's body from going, whoa, this is a foreign invader. This is something I've never seen before, or, this is a foreign object, and the immune system basically attacking it. So when conception takes place, the immune system down regulates to protect the fetus. This is why there's so many women in the autoimmunity community who are like, yeah, I have this autoimmune condition, but man, I got pregnant and I felt great. It's because the immune system, their hyperactive autoimmune system has down regulated. So they feel better. Then after delivery, what happens for a lot of women, not everyone, is that immune system snaps back real fast.
Whoa.
And then they can have this postpartum, autoimmune response. That's the most common mechanism by which we see, like immediate postpartum autoimmunity. But there's also, and I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but, if there was a difficult labor and delivery, right? Like, sometimes there's emergencies, sometimes there's an unexpected C-section, any kind of like additional stress in addition to just the physical stress of giving birth. Those stress hormones and that stress response can actually impact the microbiome, the gut, which again, 70 to 80% of the immune system is in the gut. And when we have this big stressor on the system, it can actually thin the lining of the gut wall a little bit. And again, this doesn't happen for everyone, which is one of the biggest causes of autoimmunity. So leaky gut, or the more medically appropriate term is called intestinal permeability, where, that epithelial lining of the gut wall is a little bit like a fishnet. It's a little loosey-goosey when those cellular junctions need to be tight and right. It needs to be a wall. So those are the mechanisms. But I will also say, and I think, there's not enough conversation about what's called glandular reserve. And what I mean by that is I'm talking specifically about the adrenals and the thyroid. There's a very tight relationship between adrenal function and thyroid function. But the functional women's health community says a woman wants good glandular reserve going into that pregnancy. So it's not like you have to have perfect adrenals and a perfect thyroid. We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about some semblance of, support and stability with those systems, which, being hypothyroid makes it challenging to get pregnant. So when we think about glandular reserve, we want to go into that conception experience with some decent glandular reserve, because if we don't, people can still get pregnant. If we don't, then after delivery, sometimes the adrenals and the thyroid have a difficult time bouncing back.
Dang, I could definitely see that. That makes so much sense the way that you're explaining this. Now, as you were talking about, pregnancy and what that looks like, and, you can still get pregnant, but you would love to be more optimized in your health. So that leads me to my next question, which is, are gluten, seed oils, and soy slowly assassinating your thyroid like tiny nutritional hitmen?
I love your questions. Okay, so let's talk about seed oils first. They're highly inflammatory. I mean, they just kind of wreak havoc in a multitude of ways. And they raise oxidative
Jill,
stress.
go baseline with me, because even just the other day, my mom was like, what is a seed oil actually? Because she was like, I keep hearing you say they're terrible for you, but I don't even know what they are.
Well, it can be, I'm kind of hemming and hawing right now because I never buy them. So I'm like, okay, well, what seeds do they come from? Basically any seed, really. And I hope I'm saying this, I hope I'm not misspeaking about things like sunflower seed oil. That's a seed oil.
Soybean oil.
Soybean oil is horrible. Sesame seed oil.
Safflower oil, I think, is one of them.
Safflower, also very inflammatory. So yes, safflower, sunflower,
Canola oil, right?
That's corn.
That's what?
That's corn. That's corn derived.
Yes, yes, yes. But basically, any package that you pick up from the middle of the grocery store, unless it's specifically organic and has on the front, like, it's made with avocado oil, you turn it over and it probably has soybean oil or one of these inflammatory seed oils in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And soy oil, soy is technically a legume. That's also problematic. We're going to talk about soy here in a second. But, you want the good oils in your life. The olive oil, the avocado oil, ghee, which is nicknamed liquid gold, which is also very supportive to the thyroid. So ghee is clarified butter, right? It's the oil it's when the milk solids and the oil has been separated with butter and you're like scraping off that top layer of oil. A lot of people cook with it. So oils are very inflammatory. And you're right. Like in any conventional grocery store, you go to the center of, those center aisles of that store, and you're going to find a lot of seed oils in those products. Very inflammatory, which anything that drives inflammation is just going to drive autoimmunity. So inflammation and autoimmunity are like kissing cousins. It's like the more autoimmunity you have, the more inflammation you have, and vice versa. The more inflammation, the more challenging it is to modulate and balance an immune system. And I guess I want to pause here for just a second and say there are over, 120 different types of autoimmune conditions. The outlier is type 1 diabetes. Like those people need to be insulin dependent. You can reverse, manage, modulate, in my opinion, any other autoimmune condition, right? It might take some time. I mean, even advanced progressive MS can be modulated. So I do want to make sure that we drive that point home. So, we're talking about all these different inputs and all these ways that, autoimmunity can flare. But when we start peeling back these layers, these things that you and I are talking about, autoimmunity can go into remission with the exception of type 1 diabetes.
Thank you, Lord. Huge.
Yes, absolutely. I've had 3, so, okay. Soy is what's called a phytoestrogen, Phyto. That prefix means plant-based estrogen. Now, I am not categorically against soy. There's some really what I would call nasty types of soy. I don't think anybody should be drinking soy milk. I do have a problem with tofu. If you want to eat like whole soybeans, like edamame, that's a good source of protein. And I also don't have a problem with what's called tempeh, T-E-M-P-E-H, which is whole soy that's been fermented, right? So fermentation is actually good for the microbiome. So, soy milk, tofu, and we have a lot of women and men who are vegetarian, vegan, who are trying to get their protein needs met from a lot of soy, right? They're just ingesting all these phytoestrogens, right? Well, that's going to interrupt your own delicate endocrine symphony, our whole hormonal system, our whole endocrine system. All those hormones talk to one another. They're never in isolation. So if you're consuming a lot of phytoestrogens, I would say that's going to be a problem for most people.
Yeah.
So, and we do know that, estrogen dominance, which again, the definition is when there's not enough progesterone to oppose the estrogen. But we've got this, women who are on the birth control pill and who are also vegetarian. I don't know what percentage of the population that is, but man, oh man, like that's going to spell trouble for a lot of women. And I'm not saying, oh, you'll never get pregnant, or, oh, you're going to continue to have these horrible cycles with, clotting and really bad cramping, or you're going to go, by the time you go through menopause, it's going to be really difficult. I can't say that, but it is kind of a hormonal mess to consume a lot of soy. We already talked about the birth control pill, but if someone's doing both, like that's kind of a recipe for, I hate to say it, but poor health.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think this is such good information to get out there. So I'm thankful for you being willing to say that. And I loved your analogy of the kissing cousins with autoimmunity inflammation. I was like, yes, that is so good, Jill. Okay. So I feel like we're quickly running out of time. I want to get to a few just, pinpoints of like now if they're like, oh, I think this might be me, now you've armored them up with the tools of like, these are the things to ask for in a test. This is what you can do to, mitigate some of the effects. We've talked about getting rid of some of the toxicities, what have you. So is it true that you can heal your thyroid naturally, like you mentioned earlier, and like, how do they go about doing that? Like, help paint the picture for us.
Okay. Well, first of all, sorry, I know I sound like a broken record. Given that upwards of 90% of people who have low thyroid function do have Hashimoto's, there's some basic principles of what's called immune modulation that I wrote in a free download. It's on my website. It's healthfulelements.com/tame. I'll share that link with you.
It'll be in the show notes, y'all, so you can get it down there. The
principles of modulating and balancing the immune system is in there. It's not a fluffy guide. It's you can read it in one sitting, but it's pretty. I lay it out. So my approach in my coaching practice and in my group classes is, as weird as this might sound, we're not going to target the thyroid for most people. We're going to modulate and balance the immune system, knowing that a lot of the things that we talk about within modulating and balancing the immune system also support the thyroid. So if you happen to be one of those 5% of people who just has like garden variety hypothyroidism without the Hashimoto's, all those things are still going to be helpful. So I said earlier that 70 to 80% of the immune system is in the gut. And I'm going to tell you two things that are two of the biggest levers you can pull to support your thyroid and also balance your immune system, which is sleuth out your food sensitivities, right? Your IgG immune response. Sleuth out whether or not, and this is not difficult to do, sleuth out whether or not you are having an IgG reaction to a food or food group. They can be reversed. If you find that you have a food sensitivity, it is not a lifelong sentence. The other piece of this, I do fecal testing, fecal panels with all my clients to determine, is there a gut pathogen? Is there SIBO, H. pylori, C. diff, E. coli? We look for those things to see, is there a gut infection that's causing the immune system to just mount a response, get this out of here. I got to fight this. Well, that's what autoimmunity is. It's a hypervigilant, overactive immune system. So we've got to get rid of those infections and we got to heal those food sensitivities. And I'm telling you, it will change your life in ways you could not have imagined.
Now, how do they get those tests? Is it that they reach out to you? Do they go to your website? What does that look like?
So the elimination provocation experiment, which helps people sleuth out food sensitivities, is a blog post on my website. It's also published in my Essential Thyroid Cookbook. I don't remember what page it's on, but it's in there. So it's a free resource. It's on my blog. It's in my book. And then if someone wants to do a fecal panel, just reach out through the contact page on my website. And I know we're running out of time. However, did you want me to address that gluten thing real fast?
Yes, please. Please do.
Okay, I'm going to make this really quick. Gluten is not bad all the time. There's a whole community of practitioners who are like, oh, you have hypothyroidism, you can never eat gluten again. Well, there's a phenomenon called molecular mimicry where gliadin, which is the protein fraction of gluten, is almost identical in molecular structure to the thyroid tissue, which is really weird. So for people who do have Hashimoto's, when they ingest gluten, oftentimes it ups the ante on the autoimmune response. However, because Hashimoto's is reversible, once it is reversed and modulated and your antibodies are down and you're feeling good, small amounts of gluten from time to time are not going to throw you into the stratosphere of oh my gosh, I'm having this Hashimoto's flare. So it's not a lifelong sentence for most people, but during what's called immune modulation to get your Hashimoto's reversed, you do want to be gluten-free because of that molecular mimicry phenomenon.
Oh, wow. Okay. I have not heard that before. So thank you for sharing that with us. Okay. So this is a question that I feel like I could only ask you or a few people like you because of what you believe about the Lord and just all these things. So if you had to say that there was even a spiritual or emotional root of thyroid dysfunction, could speaking up or not speaking up actually affect your health? As I was researching
Absolutely.
this, I saw that the thyroid is in the throat or chakra area. So it's like a mind, body, spirit type thing. Can you expound on that or tell me if I'm just crazy and the research I did was so wrong?
I've had these conversations with so many friends like this last, I'd say like month.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm not discounting it, because when you look at the endocrine system, the hypothalamus gland in the brain, the pituitary, the thyroid, the adrenals, our gonads, which are ovaries for men and testes for women. Like when you put an image of a human body with those organs next to the chakra system, they line up. And our ancient ancestors who came up with that chakra system, we didn't have modern endocrinology back at that time. So they didn't know. They could not have known about those glands and organs at the time. It is actually quite fascinating. However, as I've continued to grow in my faith, since really 2019, I just like dove back into the way I was raised, right? I have so shied away from anything that I feel lends itself at all to New Ageism. And there's so many New Agers and I used to dabble in it. I used to dabble in yoga. I used to dabble in chakras. I used to dabble in Reiki. I used to dabble in talking to, like getting psychic readings. This was like in my 30s and 40s. I'm 55 now. So I've just completely moved away from all that because my spirit says, this is not of the Lord. Like this is New Ageism. This is a false belief system.
Yeah.
And I know it ruffles a lot of feathers in the Christian community because there's a lot of Christians who do yoga, but it's actually, in my opinion, worship of a false idol.
Yeah.
It's Hindu, right?
Yeah.
And in that yogic community, these yogis, they're talking about the chakras all the time. And I actually had a handout that I've shared with hundreds of people about that endocrine and chakra, side by side. And like, I deleted it. I just felt in my heart, this is not something that the Lord wants me talking about.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. Sometimes I wonder, like, how much of like Eastern medicine, is like, it's like trying to emulate some of the principles from the Bible, but then also just twist it slightly. So I think it's really important to be on guard with that. And so I appreciate you mentioning that book, and I can't wait to dive into it. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, Jill, it was such an eye-opening episode for me today. I feel like I learned so much. And I hope that if you're listening to this and you know somebody in your life that is dealing with either autoimmunity, Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, lupus, diabetes, any of these things that we talked about today, that you would share it with them and make sure that they check in with Jill or someone like Jill. It is just so important that you're looking at the ways that God has designed your body to heal, what that can look like. So Jill, if they want to connect with you afterwards and or get any other resources you didn't get a chance to mention earlier, will you share those with them, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what you got for us then? Where can they find you?
Okay, yes.
You're good.
Yes, of course I will respond to email. Okay, so my website is healthfulelements.com, which I know you're going to link to. There's my Taming Autoimmunity Guide, which is my URL, healthfulelements.com/tame. I also have a best-selling cookbook called Essential Thyroid Cookbook, over 100 nourishing recipes for thriving with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. It was published in 2017. It's been going strong all these years. We're very, very grateful. So I have a co-author, Lisa Markley. She's absolutely brilliant. She was the recipe developer. She's a culinary nutritionist. And what other resources do I have? So I would say those are probably the most important. Oh, if I could also say, the thyroid and the adrenals are so interlinked. And the functional medicine community says if a woman is, or a man even, is hypothyroid and has Hashimoto's, you want to address the thyroid and the immune system, but you have to address the adrenals too. And I have a free download on my website called Restore Your Adrenals. It's right there on my homepage if you scroll down just a little bit. So I would say the Adrenal Nourishment Guide, or I call it a chat book, the Taming Autoimmunity ebook, and my cookbook. Those are really great places to start. That's going to give you a ton of information.
Absolutely. And Jill, just again, as if you're talking to a first grader, so it's me, it's okay. I'm happy to admit it. But if you are listening to this and you're like, I don't know that I think that I have autoimmunity, But y'all, I think from what I'm learning is that pretty much anyone could benefit from supporting their adrenals. Will you explain again to a kindergartner, 60 seconds, what are your adrenals and why does everyone need to support those?
Yes, everybody needs to support their adrenals. So the adrenals are two small glands that sit on top of the kidneys, and they're responsible for putting out small and calculated amounts of stress hormones to help us cope, right? Like cope with life's stressors. Well, from an ancestral perspective, our ancestors were putting out a lot of cortisol to help them go out and hunt and forage for food or run from a predator. And then they would go back to the cave and have these really long periods of respite. And we do not get that today. So the adrenals are just kind of always on, right? Always on, making too much cortisol, which can downregulate the thyroid. It can also impact the lining of the gut wall. It can cause anxiety. So phase one of adrenal dysregulation is overproduction of cortisol. Well, if that goes on for too long, the adrenals go, hey man, you know what? I'm pooped out. I'm too tired from helping you cope with life. I'm going to downregulate cortisol production. So hypercortisolism is a problem and hypocortisolism is a problem. So we want that cortisol to be, in that healthy range, which, the adrenals are also called the shock absorbers of life, right? So when people are very adrenal depleted, they have a more challenging time coping with life stressors. And people will say, yeah, I don't have as much stress tolerance as I used to. And that's a telltale sign that their adrenals need support.
So good. So everybody check that out down in the show notes. Go get it. And then Jill asked everybody this question in closing. So I'm curious to hear your answer. How do you reset?
Oh, gosh. Well, that's a great question. I make sure to plan downtime with my daughter, right? Like she's a basketball player. We do a lot of tournaments and practices, and it's easy to get caught up in the life of being a basketball mom, getting her to and from, and my work. And, I'm busy and I'm very active in the health freedom movement. It's practically a part-time job for me. So like scheduling that downtime with her is critically important. And then every morning there's an app called, I don't even know if I'm saying it properly, Duomo, Duomo. So it's called like biblical micro-learning. So I do a lesson on Duomo every morning and blast my faith music in my house at least once a day. And just, this may sound silly, but like get a few chores done as I'm blasting that music, which it actually doesn't feel like chores to me. It actually feels like a reset, because when my house is dysregulated and like, I can't think very well. I can't function very well when I'm like surrounded by clutter. So a reset for me is to blast my faith music and, do projects around my house, spend time with my daughter, scheduled downtime with her, biblical micro learning, and we like to watch documentaries.
Oh, I love that. I love that answer. And I can't wait to check out Duomo. So I'll link that down in the show notes too. And it was funny when you were talking earlier, Jill, about the adrenals. I was thinking, yeah, because God told us in the Bible that we need to Sabbath. And because we don't Sabbath, now we've got adrenal issues and autoimmunity issues and a host of issues because we literally just don't live out what he told us to do, which is that he designed our bodies to rest. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
This is like, now I'm really on a tangent, but I was just at Bible study last week, Jill, and one of the things that someone shared that I thought was so poignant was she said, God just calls us to be with him. We are human beings. And ultimately, if we're not being with the Lord and being still and asking him, like, am I living in my calling? While yes, it would be good to go serve at church in this way, is that what you've called me to right now? And if I'm not being with the Lord and getting that intuition and getting filled up by him and his presence, then how can I pour out to others that do so well? And instead we try to be human doings where we're like doing all the time and burning ourselves out and going crazy. And so it's so cool that I just had that conversation last Friday. And then this Friday, you're echoing it from a scientific standpoint. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You are so right. I've talked for years about being a human being versus a human doing. Like It's too easy to get caught up in this like rat wheel of life. And I'm always asking the Lord, like, show me who you want me to see, or sorry, show me who you want me to connect with, show me what you want me to see, and show me what you want me to hear. Use my hands and feet and continue to show me how you want me to show up in my practice and, you know, guide my steps. I'm always checking in with him to see, you know, am I on the path that I need to be on?
Yeah. Oh, Jill, I feel like this is just the Holy Spirit. Do you mind praying that over our audience for their day today when they're listening to this?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Lord, we just pray that every person listening to this is rooted in your word and rooted in your guidance. I pray that you have your hands on their shoulders. And if anyone's questioning their purpose, I just pray that, you know, they continue to pray about it and listen to your guidance. And I think it's too easy to question whether we're hearing from the Lord, right? And it's too easy to hear from what the world is telling us we should be doing. So I just pray a hedge of protection around everyone, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial, and that you allow these people to use their hands and feet for your glory. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Jill. And y'all, that was just such a great, informative episode. I hope you share it with your friends. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me or Jill. Share this episode with someone that needs to hear it. We love you guys. Have an awesome Tuesday, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Y'all know I'm obsessed with all things optimal health, as clearly evidenced here on the podcast. Well, let me tell you about a new company and supplement line that I feel is truly going to change the face of not only our health, but also aging. Enter the crazy and amazing world of peptides. I know you've heard a ton about pharmaceutical kinds, the Ozempics, the Wegovy's of the world, all kinds of crazy with the results that people are getting, but also scary in regards to the possible side effects. What if we could get the same results with a peptide that was made in nature instead of a lab? That's where Make Wellness comes in and their line of bioactive precision peptides. You want to be leaner? You want to be fitter? Want to be more hydrated, more energized, focused, all of the above? I am literally obsessed with these, you guys, and I know you will be too. This is the future of where health is headed. Everything is linked in the show notes, so make sure to check them out. I think you're going to be just as obsessed as I am. Okay, friend, that's a wrap on this week's episode. If you're not already following me on Instagram, make sure to screenshot this episode, share it to your stories, and tag @Healthy by Heather Brown so I can connect with you in my DMs. It truly brings me so much joy to see how these episodes impact you. Make sure to subscribe so we can see you back here next Tuesday for our weekly show. In case you don't know, your downloads, ratings, and reviews are the actual lifeblood of this podcast, and it helps spread the word to your friends and family. So please hit the download button on this episode and leave a 5-star rating if you super loved it. And if we're really BFFs, you'll spread the happy and text this podcast link to someone who needs to hear it today for some encouragement. Scroll down to the show notes on this episode to see any and all links mentioned, freebies to fuel your health goals, prior-related episodes, and the 7-day free trial of my exclusive membership where I personally coach and cheer you on in whole health. While you're there, make sure to check out my Amazon storefront with healthy snacks, my favorite look for less workout outfits, and books and devotionals that challenge me in my faith. If you ever need to find my Amazon storefront, just Google Healthy by Heather Brown Amazon and it will come up. Have a great day, girl gang.